Welcome back to Blam Blam Truckers. This is Bees coming at you with one more chapter of Transformers, the unofficial D6 RPG as created by the High King. Yes, the High King. A man I have not been able to find for almost, maybe even over 10 years. But when I knew him, boy, did we have a lot of fun together. He is the creator of the unofficial D6 Transformers RPG that we have been talking about, that I still play to this day. Great guy, was a lot of fun to talk to, great fun to collaborate with. We had different ideas on what Transformers RPG should be exactly, but with all the various iterations of Transformers over the years, I don't blame him. Uh, blame is the wrong word. Of course, we're going to disagree. No two people are going to agree on exactly what Transformers should be. There's too many different iterations of it. We're all going to want something from different aspects of what we grew up with, or what we played with, or what our kids played with, or what we saw in the movies, or whatever. So, yeah, it is what it is. Love the guy. Wish I could run into him again one of these days. Maybe do another play-by-post with him. Maybe do something with him on here. Wouldn't that be great? Run an actual RPG on here with the High King and Buse. That would be awesome. Okay, we are in Chapter 2. Oh, by the way, guys, I found this PDF of his unofficial D6 Transformers RPG. I found it on, I got the website right here. Doobie doobie doo. RPGgeek.com. We have the file page, and the information is here. I went retroactively and linked it back into the other videos, and you sign up, and I had to sign in to do this, but as soon as you sign in, you click here, and it'll automatically download the Transformers D6 RPG for you. It is awesome. It is great. And we're going to go back to why I think it's awesome and great. And I got all these Quintesson pages up, and this was a search, and this is me going through a couple of different things to get here. And then I was looking up Quintessons earlier, and that's what all these pages are about. And look, you can buy one for $30 at Walmart. It's a 6-inch figure with a card, a card back. Look at that. Look at that card back there. Wow, what cool figures. I don't have this kind of money. I would be tempted to buy them if I did have this kind of money. And if they had some articulation. It doesn't look like they're very articulated. But I could be wrong. Man, Quintessons. Guilty, innocent. These are all based off the movie right here. Not everything in the card here is based off the movie, though. A lot of it is. Transformers the movie from 1986, 87, whatever it was. I want to say 87, but if I say that, it's probably 86, and then season 3 was 87. It was a long time ago when dinosaurs ruled the earth, specifically Grimlock. Grimlock, who is right here. Grimlock. He ruled the earth. And here's another Grimlock. Hey, he doesn't even transform. Oh well, all's fair in lovely wars. Let's get back to where we were. We are in Chapter 2, Part 4 in the game book itself, in the core rule book, which is, for us, this is our third installment for Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is a long chapter, and it's only the first part of character creation, because Chapters 1, 2, and 3 are all about character creation. Then 4 and 5, I believe, are about combat, and I think 4 is movement, 5 is combat, and 6 is repairs and martial arts, maybe? I don't know. We'll figure it out as we get there. Let me take a sip of water, and we will continue. I may have to split this up, just so you guys know. Because there's 2 more sections to Chapter 2. There's special abilities, and then there's the opposite of special abilities, and I forget what they're called. We'll scroll down for a second. Doobie, look at me scroll. I'm scrolling. He's scrolling now. I'm scrolling now. And here we go. Disabilities, the opposite of special abilities. So we're going to go all the way back up here. I'm going to try and cover all the abilities in this talkie-walkie-talkie talk through with you guys. Here we go. Special abilities. And if you guys just want to see it, I left off from skills. We covered these last time. This is from technical. And here we go. There are currently almost 60 special abilities that can be picked at character creation or gotten later in time through advancement. Some of the abilities have prerequisites. Remember, this is just one part of your integrated systems. You've got your integrated weapon systems, both energon consuming, there's 3. Energon consuming, fuel consuming or ammo consuming, and physical state weapons. Like a sword. If you can turn your hand into a sword. Excuse me. I just ate dinner. So yeah, there's that, there's your tools, and there's your payload, and then there's your special abilities. You start with just 1 point. You have to trade from the other pools to increase that at character creation, or you advance your character through experience points to get more special abilities. Yeah. It is a difficult balancing act, I'll tell you that right now. Just about every special ability has some of the special abilities have prerequisites, some have multiple levels, and each level giving the user significantly more ability. Just about every special ability has an energon expenditure, and it will be described in detail as to whether the expenditure will be per usage, per round, or whether or not there is even an expenditure. A lot of them actually don't have energon expenditures, and you'll see. You'll see as we go through it. He denotes with 1 star special abilities that both humans and Cybertronians can use, and 2 stars are special abilities that only humans can use, of which I believe there's 2. All right. So we start with air jets, which is Cybertronian only. Air jets are built into the robot's legs or back, allowing them to add plus 5d to the robot's jump skill. They can only be used in atmosphere. A character can jump much higher than they would ordinarily. The best feature of this special ability is that it doesn't consume energon. Its drawback is that it only works in atmosphere. Air jets are actually... The Transformer Gears in Generation 1 had them, which is probably why he's including them here. So, Gears was an amazing jumper. Special ability number 2. I'm going to lose track. Acrobatic. Again, the number after it designates how many ranks it has. So acrobatic only has 1 rank. This ability grants an extra acrobatic dodge, so you get 2 dodges per round, a free dodge. And your dice used for climbing/jumping can be used in all dodge actions while on the ground. So, yeah. You can't do it while you're flying. It's when you're playing as your bot or as you're in your alt mode. But you have to be on the ground. But you add your climb jumping dice into your dodge dice. That is huge. Huge. And he kind of goes over it here in the frequently asked questions. I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to give you a chance to pause the screen and read it for yourself. I've got the whole thing on there, so it should be easy to read. 1, 2, 3. Aerial combat. Must be used in flying a vehicle or being a robot capable of transforming into an air vehicle. So if you wanted to make a piloting human, and you want it to be like a pilot of a jet, you might choose this. If you're turned into a jet or a helicopter or whatever, or a high performance or high technology vehicle or whatever we're calling those, flying saucers and spaceships. 1/2 of your dodge dice can be applied to your existing vehicular evasion skill. I can say all of those words individually. Hopefully I can say them together. And 1/2 of your ranged weapons dice can also be applied to your vehicular weapons dice skill. This makes you a better pilot, basically. So keep that in mind. It's great special ability. Most of these are just fantastic. Most of them do not break the game. I will bring up the ones that I know of that do break the game. This dodge ability here, the acrobatic, this dodge ability is not quite game breaking, but it can be. I actually put it on Grunt, and with Grunt, it is game breaking. What a broken character. So min-maxed. I love it. But he would fail in so many things. Ambidextrous. So robots are already ambidextrous, but humans are not. This ability allows a person to use paired weapons with no offsets. and Chapter 6 for rules consuming paired weapons and ambidexterity. So it'll come up later. You're already ambidextrous as a robot, so this is a human-only skill, really. Athlete. A character can have. So this is. I'll read through it. A character can have no specializations in strength skills before you pick this in a strength of 4D. This allows you to improve all 5 strength skills: brawling, climbing, jumping, lifting, stamina, and swimming, at double the cost of your highest skill. So if you have a skill that's, he's got an example here. If all of the skills are at 4D, then it would cost you 8D to raise all 5 skills to 4D plus 1. If you want a very athletic character, you might consider using this. I've never taken it. Frankly, I don't play in a lot of games where there's a lot of climbing, jumping, or a lot of lifting, or a lot of stamina checks, or a lot of swimming. I could. I've never played in a game where one or more of those didn't come up, but they're usually not the main focus. Usually, not always, but usually they're not the main focus of the game. So, yeah, take it or don't take it. That's up to you. You only get so many special ability points to choose from a character creation. You might want to spec into this later if it fits your playstyle, or if you build for that playstyle. Architect. This is not quite game breaking. So I don't know if THK knew this when he put this together, but technical, of all 6 of your physical attributes, technical is the one that the GM has the most control over, because if he doesn't allow you to get the parts, which is at his discretion or her discretion, then you can't repair things or build new things. He makes you quest for stuff. It's pretty cool. I've used it in Star Wars a lot. On Transformers, being an architect, which does have the prerequisite of a minimum of 3D knowledge and 3D technical, allows you to add your knowledge in conjunction with any design usage of technical skills. So, this covers a lot, including healing rolls. So that's a big deal, especially if you're somebody like Doc, who has a ridiculously high knowledge skill. And I built him specifically to break this game. I love the character. I use him in a story, but he was created to. I pushed the limit as far as I could on breaking the game. I would love to have Buse run a session for me, just so I could actually test him out and see if I could survive. He is a total non-combatant, and he is also an architect. But you add this to any design skills you're making, any repair rolls you're making, you add in your knowledge, whatever that stat is. At least it's got to be a minimum of 3D, because that's one of the prerequisites. 3D knowledge, haha. Look at that, right there. So this is a big add, and humans can take it. So if you're playing a human character, you might make a pilot character. We saw that with aerial combatant. You might make an architect character, a designer, who can help out repairing the Transformers, building new technology, repairing technology. You might make a Transformer who does that. So yeah, this also applies to demolition rolls. This can apply to knowing where to place the demolitions pack. Understanding the design of the building would help with that. This applies to writing computer programs, not to actual security roles on computer programming, but to writing computer programming. It's a versatile skill. Highly recommended if this sounds like the kind of thing you'd like to do. Combiner limb and combiner body. So if you know anything about the gestalts or the combiners or the teams or whatever you want to call them, you need 4 limbs and 1 body. And the body is a class 3 transformer. So with the Stunticons, who I'm pretty sure I can list them all. It's Breakdown, Dead End, Wild Rider, Drag Strip, and the body was Motormaster. Haha! 5 out of 5. I hope. I probably got it wrong. We'll hear about it in the comments if I do. So Combiners are the gestalts. It's when you combine 5 Transformers into the Constructicons, the Stunticons, the Aerial Bots, the Combaticons, the Protectobots. Yeah, there are more than that. So, prerequisite for being a limb, uh, you have to be a Class 1 or Class 2 Transformer, and you have to be part of a combiner team. So, being a limb, you can turn into either an arm with 1 pick or a leg with 1 pick, or with 2 picks, you can be either an arm or a leg. You're interchangeable. As a combiner body, you turn into the main body of the Class 4 Transformer, and you have 1 level of combiner. Okay, so 1 level of combiner body lets you work with your team. 2 levels allows you to take in combiner limbs from other teams, i.e. a Stunticon merging with Bruticus. It's pretty cool. I like how he did that. It actually fits with some of the lore. Actually, all of this fits with 1 or 2 pieces of lore. Every time I see one of these things, I think of the character that it applies to. Like, we talked about Air Jets with... where's Air Jets? We talked about how Air Jets was with Gears. We didn't really mention somebody for acrobatic. I don't have one off the top of my head, but it's probably Bumblebee. Aerial combat, that screams of Power Glide in Transformers G1 Season 2. Ambidextrous, I can't think of somebody off the top of my head. There are some very athletic robots and people. Architect screams Hoist. Combiner limbs, all of the combiners, we've talked about that. Charger, you can take 2 picks of this. This is a cool power. So you need to possess an integrated energy weapon, whether it's fuel, it can't be fuel consuming. It has to be energon consuming. A Charger's special ability allows an extra point of energon to be spent per usage of an integrated. You don't have to use it. You can use it. An integrated energy weapon for an extra 1d of damage. That's with 1 level. With 2 levels, you can spend 2 energon points. So you're using at least 3, maybe more, but probably just 3, to fire off your weapon, but you're getting an extra 2d damage. That's significant. May not seem like a lot. Oh, it's only 2d damage, but you're rolling with, and when you've already got damage, a weapon of say 4d damage, adding 2d brings it to 60. You're rolling against a robot who's resisting at 3d plus 2. You're probably going to do some damage to them. I mean, unless you roll all 1s and they roll all 6s, but that's the way the world works right there. Color shifter. I love this one. So, color shifting with 1 pick, excuse me. Oh, I apologize. With 1 pick of color shifting, you can just change your color anytime you want to for 3 energon into any color you want to be. With 2 picks, you can actually do an environmental blend. Is that what he calls it? That's what he calls it, yeah. And that's 6 energon per every minute. Now that is not, a round is 5 seconds, so that's 5 goes into 60. That's 12 rounds for 6 energon. That's pretty cheap. So yeah, you keep your environmental blend running, and you just stay blended in. It adds the 1 pick can, in the right situation, add 2d to sneak and hide. It's really just sneak. It is not hide. Hide has nothing to do with hiding yourself, of trying to be sneaky. Sneak is the skill. It's not hide. You drive me nuts with this, THK, just so you know. And you're not the only one. I see this all the time. And I already had my rant about it when we did the skills in the last video, so I'm not going to rant on it again. Hide is a different skill entirely. It's just to sneak. So again, with the full blend, you get plus 4d to your sneak roll. That's a lot of sneak right there. Diagnostic 2. So there's 2 picks here. With pick 1 of Diagnostic, all of your medical rolls get an additional 2d. That's nice. But with 2 picks of Diagnostic, all of your medical rolls get to add in the knowledge attribute. And yes, Diagnostic stacks with Architect. Where's Architect? There it is. Architect stacks with Diagnostic. So if you've got a knowledge of 3D and you have both Diagnostic 2 and Architect, then your medical rolls are going to add 6D to all of your medical rolls, whether it's medicine, robotics, or first aid. Think about that. And engineering might add into that too if you're working on a transformer. That's huge. Extra payload. We talked about this 2 videos back. The only way to increase the amount of payload you have beyond your natural limit of 2 or 3 if you're a class 3 is to use this special ability. 1 pick gets you 1 point of extra payload, 2 picks gets you 2 picks of extra payload. You're saying, why? What is the big deal? It's just payload. You know what? In Chapter 3, we're going to go over why this is huge. You are adding to the amount of gear you can carry. It's basically like having another backpack in any other RPG. Only this isn't any other RPG. All of your gear is important. It all impacts you. So, yeah. Extra payload. Think about it. It might be what you're looking for. I actually built a Transformer. I used this in a game against Buse. I built a Decepticon who had a ton of payload. So every time he dropped a weapon, he just pulled another one out of nowhere. He's like, yoink, fusion cannon, blam, blam, blam. Yoink, pulse rifle, blam, blam, blam. It was a lot of fun. Buse has a lot of fond memories of that particular encounter. It was probably his favorite encounter I did with him, and I built that character to take on his character in particular, and we had a blast. Literally, when Buse destroyed the stack of Energon and caused an explosion. But he stopped the Decepticons from getting away with it, so that's got to count for something, despite leveling an entire building. Luckily, there were no humans in it, but there you go. Electronic hijack. Why are there 2 picks of this? So, as you can see, there's a lot of prerequisites for electronic hijack. It is not, you have to build your character around using this special ability. You need 4D in perception, 4D in brawling, 5D in command, which is a perception skill, and 4D's in intimidation, which is under knowledge. So that's a lot of dice in your character creation to be able to pick this thing up. Does this just cost 2? I think this just costs 2. This ability gives the user the ability to make an attempt at becoming the master in a master-slave relationship. Yeah, this is basically mind control. It only works on other Cybertronians. A successful hand-to-hand touch attack must be made in order to make the attempt. Attackers would roll perception versus the target's perception. I'd make it the target roll willpower, but that's just me. Second selection, here we go. A second selection of this power, a user can make a verbal command attempt if the victim is within 10 meters times the character class. So, you have to be in contact with them with 1 pick. You can give them verbal commands with 2 picks, and it is going to cost you 5 Energon for 3 rounds. So that's not the fastest drain out there, but assuming you only have 100 Energon, if you even have that much, that is only 20 times 3, that's 60 rounds. 60 times 5 is 120. So that's only 120 seconds. That's not right. That's not right at all. Got out the calculator. So, I'm going to actually walk through these calculations. You get 5 Energon per 3 round. So, you have 100 Energon. Divide it by 5 equals 20. You have 20 rounds of this before you run out of Energon, maximum. And you would need more, because once you run out of Energon, you go offline. So this is a theoretical maximum. You wouldn't actually hit it if you start with 100 Energon, and you may have more, you may not. You may have a way to recharge yourself, whatever. This is just a theoretical 100 Energon. You've got the givens. So there's 20 rounds. I'm sorry, there's 20 times, that's 20 times this can be done. It's 3 rounds per usage, so that's 20 times 3. Times 3 is 60. So what does that get us? That's 60 rounds. 60 rounds are 5 seconds apiece, so multiply this by 5. So that's 300 rounds. Well, that's 300 seconds. Yeah. It's 60 rounds. It's 300 seconds. That's a lot of seconds, right? But we're going to divide that by 60. Why did I do this? Hold on. Let me clear this. Let me try again. So it's 20 pulls. 20 pulls is 60 rounds. So we're at 60 rounds. A round is 60 seconds. I'm sorry, a round is 5 seconds times 5. This is stupid. 300 seconds divided by 60. So you can basically control somebody if you use up all your energon and don't use it for anything else for 5 minutes maximum. You have to keep that energon flowing to them too. So yeah, there's no class difference here either. Yeah. So you could actually have a class 1 land on the back of a class 3, jump up on the back of them, do the electronic hijack, and then control that class 3 for 3 or 4 minutes or a number of rounds and turn the tide of battle maybe. It's an interesting ability. You throw teleport into this so you actually can teleport behind them, or invisibility or color change so you can sneak in even easier. Yeah, there's a lot there. Here's the other thing you can do. Energon Vampire is the very next skill. There's only one pick of this. You will notice that this kind of overlaps. You need a strength of 3D, which is a different prerequisite. But just like in electronic hijack, you need a brawling of 4D and a perception of 4D. So you're already there to start doing Energon Vampire. Adding these, if you can do this, you can probably do this. Power description. A character can attempt to steal Energon from opponents on the battlefield. A successful hand-to-hand touch attack must be made. Boy, does that sound familiar or what? In order to make the attempt, if the victim is unwilling or in a position where they can resist. Attackers would roll perception versus the target's perception. That sounds very familiar. It's almost like it's exactly the same as electronic hijack, only you're stealing Energon instead of trying to take them over. Characters who cannot resist can be drained with repeated usage of this power. So the caveat I make to this is you need somewhere to put the Energon. You can't just pull it out of them. So if you're down on Energon, you can start stealing somebody else's. That's pretty cool, in my opinion. You put these two together and you could extend your time. Wow, I can't believe that math screwed me up so badly. But I'm trying to do it all in my head. I'm not writing it out. Okay, Energon Port. The special ability is, this actually comes from one of the Insecticons. The one that was the beetle. Well, 2 of them were beetles and 1 was a grasshopper. Not Bombshell. Not Kickback. The other one whose name is not coming to me, who was like a scarab-looking beetle. Anyway, this special ability is actually built in onto the character. So you can hook a generator or power source up to your body to fuel your abilities or weapons. So depending on your GM, this can either, you treat this as an increase of their reserve, or the power of their attacks goes up, or both. It's the GM's call. I'm not going to make that call for you. You get to make it for yourself, but being able to blast energy out of your hands or an integrated energy weapon, making it more powerful, that would be cool. Making it so you're just constantly in a state of replenishing all your energon, that would be cool. It's your call as the GM. Talk it over with your player. Make the decision before the game starts. Engineer 1. This is useful, but it's not super useful. You got to build a specific character, but that's true around all these special abilities. You have to build a specific character who would be able to take advantage of being an engineer. All it does is it halves the energon cost of using your engineering tools. That's it. So it makes you more energon efficient. It's useful. If you don't want anything else, if none of the rest of these are jumping out at you, it's very useful. It's very practical. It's not very glorious. It's not making you go, wow, that's amazing, but it may help you work long term. Or you could just take a solar port and hope for the best. That's a tool, by the way. Force field, 2 picks. Okay, I have this on dock. A transformer can use his own force of will to project a force field around him or herself. With 1 pick, the strength of the force field is their perception. With 2 picks, the strength of the force field is both their perception and their knowledge. And the example uses, if a Class 2 Autobot has 4D in perception and 3D in knowledge, the force field strength would be 7D Class 2 scale. So yeah, and it costs quite a bit of energon. You can't keep this up for long. If you've got force field 2, it's running you 20 energon per round. 20 energon per round. So yeah, that's going to drain through your energon reserves pretty quick, especially if you only have 100 energon. Grab a solar port. Hacker 1. So again, humans can take Hacker. Your knowledge rolls are applied to your both electronic security measures when you're trying to get through them and your hacking into computer systems, so your computer programming roll. And bare minor requirements. If you have a technical attribute of 3D, you're already there, and you can be a hacker, and hacker is a very useful skill, believe it or not. And I have it on dock. Notice how all these skills where you add in the knowledge roll, I've got it on dock. Dock in his ridiculous 10D of knowledge. He's such a broken character. There's plenty of situations he would fail in, and often does, but, you know. Headmaster, 1 pick. A headmaster robot tends to have little advantage in robot form from any other robot. I disagree, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But in vehicle form, the main robot can drive. So basically, the headmasters, their head comes off and it transforms into a separate robot or human symbiote partner. What that means is when the head is attached in robot mode, then you have 2 people both able to do actions with the same body during a round. So effectively, there's no penalties because you're performing 2 actions by separate entities instead of just 1. And in robot mode, you're going to have to, whoever goes, if they're 2 different player characters, then you're going to have to figure out who goes first based off your initiative roll, which I use as a tactics roll. I talked about it last video. But your initiative would decide to go first, and the second person would make another set of actions. You're still restricted to how many actions one body can do within a 5-second period, but yeah, you've got an entirely, it may not be an entirely different, you may have a very similar set of skills, but you've got another set of skills. They can do another series of actions while in the same round. Maybe they're handling doing sensors and figuring out weaknesses, or doing communications and all the talking to the rest of the group. Maybe they're taking a second shot, so you're behind cover and you've got 2 guns. Boom, the main robot takes a shot, boom, the head takes a shot. It's pretty cool. I'm going to read this once. It's going to come up a lot. I'm only going to read it once. If a character wishes to play a headmaster, target master, or a symbiotic master, can they have an NPC assigned to their head weapon or symbiote? Absolutely yes. However, it doesn't work the other way around. In other words, one can be the main body and have an NPC that turns into your character's head weapon or symbiote, however you pronounce that, symbiotic relationship. But you cannot be the weapon, the head, or the symbiote and have a main robot assigned to you. Pretty good ruling, actually. You can also choose to play the head, and In the Hero's Guide, he does Power Masters. You may choose to play the Power Master. You turn into an engine. So yeah, I would have a lot of fun with this if I met somebody who wanted to do something like this with me. Anyway, or a player who did it. I would probably just let them play the target, or that might be my GM character is, oh, he's the target master, so my GM character is the gun, or the head, or the symbiote, or whatever. Hologram, there's 2 picks of this. Holograms can be simple or very elaborate, but what sets the power levels apart is with 2 selections of this special ability, the holograms can actually interact with targets. He goes through the rules there. I'm not going to read them out. You guys can pause the screen and read them. Yeah, it's pretty neat power. Hound in particular had this ability in G1. Improved sense. Your knowledge roll is applied with all perception checks. This is one of the few knowledge special abilities I didn't give to Doc because you can only take so many. All perception checks concerning sensory applications, not all perception checks, are covered under this ability. I would add sneak into this and hide, but I already ranted about that in the last video. Bargain, con, persuade, command. They fall under perception because they have to be perceptive in order to use them, but improved sense is designed to boost skills like spot, scan, and search. I would also add hide and sneak in there. The above should have said improved sense is going to be a 2-pick special ability. With 2 picks, then you get to add your knowledge roll to your initiative checks. Not a weak power by any stretch of the imagination, even with all the restrictions on it. Invisible. Mirage had this in Transformers Generation 1. He just turns invisible. And, yeah. 15 Energon for 1 round. That is expensive. I would probably knock this down to 5 for 1 round and allow you to have a couple of minutes to be invisible, but it is not a long-term power. 15 for 1 round at 100 is, what is that? 60 is 5, 75 would be 6 seconds. I'm sorry, 6 times 5, it'd be 6 rounds for 75 Energon, and then 90 Energon is 7 rounds. You're blowing through your Energon quick with invisibility. Yeah. So you need 2 picks to be able to move while invisible. 1 pick just makes you invisible. Yeah, something to think about. Useful skill, don't get me wrong. Game-breaking skill, junked. Such a game-breaking skill. It's so wonderful. I took it immediately on my... I almost made a Junkion for my first character. Instead, I made a Dinobot, just because of this power. End of the line, my Valentine, or Geronimo! With this power, you can take a direct hit and suffer just short of complete vaporization, and within seconds, you begin to heal without a roll or the need for medical care, provided you are on the planet of junk, or in an area like a junkyard near lots of spare parts. This is super regen, basically. With 2 picks of this, with 2 levels now of junked. But wait, there's more! If you order 2 levels now of junk, you can even be off-world or away from spare parts. Heck, your ashes could be scattered over junk, and within minutes, i.e. you can get killed off-world and have a friend bring your remains back to Junkion, you'd be up and running, complete with 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. Hurry, order now. Operators are standing by. I love the color, I love the feel, I love the description, I love the power, but look how ridiculously powerful this makes you. So, if you get dazed or stunned, it costs 0 Energon to get rid of it. Gone. You don't get dazed or stunned. Just dazed. For 2 points for being stunned, that's a 5 to 9 damage difference points. You're not stunned anymore. 2 Energon, you're not stunned anymore. 4, you don't have your diode scrambled anymore. 6 for a wounding. Wounding's a huge deal. Hey, you're not wounded anymore. 8 for a second wounding, 10 for a third wounding, and 15 for incapacitation, and 25 for spark failure. If you die and you still have 25 energon, boom, you're immediately brought back to life, full health. Operators are standing by. I just read that. Full running, your warranty was good. Bam, you're right back into combat. This is a game-breaking ability. It is incredibly powerful. Highly recommended, worth trying. You have to be near junk for it to work, though. That's why it's not actually game-breaking. It feels game-breaking. It's only game-breaking near junkyard parts. But you don't need a repair roll if you can get to a junkyard. If you can get to a junkyard, you just use the energon and boom, you're back on track, baby. Kamikaze. Next skill. This is a very useful skill. The only prerequisite is to have a strength of 4. 4D, that is. Basically what happens is when you ram as if you're a 1 class size larger than you actually are at the time. And if you are bigger than you're supposed to be, you ram as if you're 1 class size larger than whatever class size you are at the time. So when you transform, you can transform into a bigger or smaller vehicle by 1 class size without a special ability. So we're going to go over this now. A class 2 character who turns into a class 3 vehicle rams a target. Opposing strength rolls are rolled to see which target is the most damage. The rammer would resist as a class 4 vehicle, and the target would resist damage as that was class 3 in scale. So if you plan on doing any ramming, take this ability. If you were a class 1 and you take Macro Changer and turn into a class 3 vehicle, you would then take damage as if you were a class 4 vehicle and deal damage as if you were a class 3 vehicle. Optimus Prime is a class 3 transformer. He turns into a class 4 vehicle, a tractor trailer. He has the kamikaze skill. So when he rams, which he does a couple of times, including in the movie, the 1986 Wonder movie, Transformers the movie, when he rams, he hits as if he's a class 3 vehicle, doing damage as if he's a class 3 vehicle, but he resists damage as if he's a class he rams as if he's a class 4 vehicle. He resists damage as if he's a class 5 vehicle with kamikaze. It is a very good ability. Takes 10 energon per impact, but you're not ramming all the time. But when you do want kamikaze. All right, leadership. Knowledge rolls applied to your command rolls. We talked about command in the last video, and leadership is a pretty useful skill if you're going to be the leader of your group or in charge, or if you've got a high con skill and you can convince people that they should listen to you. You're wearing a disguise to look like human guys, but you're not a man, you're a chicken, boo. Mutant Spark. This is just a catch-all. If you want a special power, talk to your GM about it in advance. I would not just give the GM straight up, give me a mutant spark and let it be whatever you want it to be. Maybe you want to do that. Personally, I'm not that creative. That's not true. I don't like coming up with this for other people. That's true. I don't want to make up your power for you. Make up your own power. That's my take on it as a GM, but some people like doing that. One guy used this in a game. One guy used this in a game I ran, and the mutant spark power I gave him was he could use his hands as ranged weapons that would automatically come back to him, kind of like Thor's hammer. He could shoot off his hand he could punch someone from across the room, and I gave him a limit range and all that. It wasn't super long range, but he's like, "This is awesome," and he had a blast with it. So he made me come up with that for him. I'm like, I don't know what kind of mutant spark to give you. Come up with something and tell me what you want. And he's like, I don't know. You come up with something. So that's what I came up with. There's a reason why there's nothing listed here. Just work out something that you think will fit. If you find out it breaks the game, go back and change it. Matrix of Leadership. Yeah. You have to be the Matrix bearer. You're Optimus Prime or Rodimus Prime. Or Sentinel Prime back in the day. When you get the later Matrix of Leadership, you become a Class 3 Transformer, whether you were Class 3 or not. All of your skills are improved by 2D automatically, and your Energon reserve is increased to 200. Not by 200, but you go from 100 to 200. Yeah, the Matrix of Leadership is a game changer. Before you put this on your character sheet, you might want to talk to the GM. He probably won't let you use it. But it could be a quest thing. You could get this later on in the game. Magnetic Force. So with one pick of this, you can attach yourself to other magnetic things. With 2 picks, you can pull weapons out of people's hands with your magnetic powers. Macro and micro changer. Pardon me. It is the end of the day. It is near my bedtime while I'm recording this. Sorry for the yawns, guys. These are the same thing, but different. Macro Changer lets you skip one size gap and transform into a larger vehicle than your robot form. So Seekers, who are Class 2 and turn into Class 4 fighter jets, they are Macro Changers. Micro Changer is the opposite. It lets you become something much smaller than yourself. So Soundwave, who's a Class 3 robot, turns into a tape deck, a human-sized tape deck. Yeah. How big was a tape deck? Not very big. Smaller than your keyboard, though thicker. Multi-changer, that's it. They're very useful, highly recommended if that's part of your build and you want to turn it into something bigger or smaller. There's huge advantages to becoming something smaller. There's the advantage of, if you take Kamikaze and Macro Changer, there's a nice 1-2 combo, but becoming something smaller, we'll cover that in the combat thing. If you become something smaller, it changes your defensive roles. So if you turn into if you're Class 3 and you turn into a Class 2 vehicle, when you're in that as a Class 2 vehicle, even though you retain all your strength of being a Class 3 and do the same physical damage you do as a Class 3, you roll to dodge as a Class 2. I took Micro Changer on my Dinobot. I've mentioned this in one of the other videos. My first character, I took Micro Changer so I could turn him from a Class 3 Dinobot warrior with 60 strength and 60 dexterity, which is ridiculously powerful, and I changed him into a Class 1 Dionychus. That was his alt form. I ended up taking Micro Changer and Multi Changer. So that was his second form. He went from being a Quetzalcoatl to a Dionychus. He could interact at a human level with humans because he was only 9 feet tall, which is, granted bigger than Shaq, but he could still fit into most human spaces. And he could run through buildings. He could fit in human spaces. He could interact with humans. He was small enough to do that in this form, and he dodged as a Class 1 Transformer. So he was basically impossible to hit, but he was great at landing hits on bigger enemies. Like, I had him go toe-to-toe with a Class 4 Gestalt, and he did a lot of damage. I know THK fudged those rolls. I know he did, because he told me. He's like, you're too powerful. I had to fudge the rolls. And I got it. I understood. I'm a GM too. I'm with you. But be aware of what your players are actually making. They're going to surprise you with something that you didn't necessarily see coming that you approved, like all the ways I've broken the games over the years. Multi-changer. You can take up to 3 picks of this. So if you want to be a triple changer, a quadra changer, a quinta changer, a hexta changer, this is how you do it. I'll let you read about it. It's completely explained right there. The only change I would have made is I would have, instead of having the prerequisite be dexterity 4D, I would have had the prerequisite be mechanical 4D. But unless you're turning into animals, in which case I would leave it as dexterity. Navigator, next ability. Humans can take this one. Must have the astrogation advanced skill, and you add 4D to your navigation and astrogation rolls. Pretty simple. Useful if that is a large component of your game. If it never comes up in your game, you're going to feel bad for taking it, but it usually Astrogation doesn't necessarily come up. Navigation almost always does, unless you got a GPS. Occultist. Oh boy. Magic user, basically. This is a human-only power. You can manipulate earth, air, water, and fire, kind of like you're an avatar. Anyway, or the world of Avatar. I don't use this power. I just don't. He's got all the details here. It's never come up. No one's ever asked to play a human in my Transformers games. One of my players might have considered it, and then we may have had to come up with rules. He doesn't get into enough detail here to tell you exactly how to do this, but he did have a He-Man PDF up for a while that covered some of this stuff. Or at least could have covered it. I didn't read that as in-depthly. I liked He-Man. I loved Transformers. Anyway, you've got the rules here. You can read through it. I honestly think this would take a decent amount of play testing. You would have to work through this and play through it. And I don't just mean rolls on my own, though that's where it would start. I mean, I would actually have to play test this. I'd have to grab Buse or somebody else and play test the heck out of this before I would be happy with doing it in a game. The same is going to be true about psychic powers, which are coming up. But you can pause it. You can read through this. If you decide you want to use it, that's fine. It's a human-only power to give them the opportunity to play in the same league as the Transformers. Also, there was magic in G1, especially the cartoon. Pilot. Let's put this in with aerial combatant. This actually, this can stack. So you can take those two special abilities and you're going to be fantastic as a pilot. A person or robot with this ability feels far more comfortable in the seat of a high-performance vehicle, jet, or spacecraft than they do on their own 2 feet. 3D to vehicle evasion, ops, skills, vehicle weapons, vehicle comms. It stacks with aerial combat, just so you know. I mentioned that, but you add 3D to your vehicle evasions and your shooting and your comms, then you can also add in half your dodge and half your ranged weapon skills as well. You would be a terror in the skies if you doubled it with aerial combatant. There's other area combatant things we're going to see as we go through. Underwater combatant is one of them, and I think there's a ground one as well. Psychic, same thing as occultist or magic user. It's human only. It's the study of the mind. He goes through how to use it here. I think I get it, but it's just not enough. It would take an entire guy. It would take it. This should have its own chapter, just like the magic thing should have its own chapter. Yeah. And he doesn't get into too much. He doesn't get into any detail of what psychic powers are. Yeah. There's 3 skills: mind, body, and aura. Yeah, most of the time studying these fields are for insight, healing, and manipulating one's environment. So I'm thinking that's mind reading and mind talking. Being able to heal, that would be body, and then manipulating one's environment, that would be some kind of telekinesis. Rarely are these abilities used for attack, but if a mental attack is used, it would do 1/4 skill dice damage for novices. I would treat this as a psychic blast attack would come as a straight stun attack. You would roll willpower to resist. That's how I would do it. Yeah, this is actually what I would come up with actual powers if I was going to have. But again, it's never come up in one of my games. So yeah. I just don't, there's not enough here. I've never used it. I don't have any more information to tell you about it. Read through it on your own. Good luck to you. Shouldn't that be a prerequisite of knowledge of 4D? Because all the skills are under their knowledge attribute. Something to think about. Quake. We're going back to Cybertronian powers and abilities that actually we've seen in the TV show and in the comics. Both Rumble and Sludge had this ability. Extremely powerful in the hands of a Class 2 Transformer and above. This devastating ability does strength damage to a 10 meter times character class size area around the Transformer. A second selection of this power grants a very noticeable range boost of 100 meters times character size class size. Surrounding structures would roll their strength versus the strength of the Quake output. Characters within the radius of effect would roll their dexterity versus the strength damage output to see if they remain upright. There is no class difference here. You can have a Class 1 character with Quake knocking over Class 3 and Class 4 Transformers if they can't make their dex roll. Larger characters would have a bonus to damage output by Quake, and larger characters would have a bonus to their dexterity to remain on their feet. So I guess there is a class bonus. I was wrong there. I wouldn't give them the full class bonus, though. I think this is a great leveler. That was awful. I did not intend that pun, but I caught it quick, and I intend it now. This ability is a great leveler. I wouldn't give him much of a bonus, honestly. The ground, what they're attacking is the ground, not the Transformer. I think and Rumble could knock down Optimus Prime just as easily as he could knock down another Class 1. So I would not give them a dex bonus for being bigger. Yeah, not a big dex bonus anyway. He goes into some questions and answers here. I'm going to leave this up on the screen while I just say I'm going to leave it up on the screen so you can pause it and read through it if you want to. And yes, super strength would add to the damage of Quake. And the damage, Quake only does direct damage to buildings and structures. It does not do direct damage to people. They fall down from a standing position. Ooh. Now, granted, if that's your 80-year-old grandmother, she might break a hip. But if it's you, and you're not 80 years old, and you don't have brittle bones, you're going to get a little bruised. At most, it'll do stun damage. At most. That's how I would run it anyway. Next power, Quadritanium Skin. Say that 5 times fast. 2 picks of this. 1 pick gives you 2D to natural armor, and 2 picks gives you 4D to natural armor. Incredibly powerful ability, not game breaking. Highly recommended if it works with your character concept. Your character concept. Reserve, 1 pick. You can add 50 points of Energon to your Energon reserve. Very useful. Not much more to say about it. You're going to spend more time thinking about these powers if you want to use them than I have to say anything about them. They're very straightforward, these two. Yeah. So, Robot Flight, special ability. He based this off the cartoon G1 more than the TV show. I'm sorry, more than the comics or later TV. All Decepticons in the cartoon back in the 80s could fly. Go watch it, you'll see. Autobots can't fly without this power or a jetpack, but then he never actually builds a jetpack. I had to build that myself, which we'll see later. Even the Aerobots need this power if they plan to do any flying outside of jet fighter form. This ability grants the comparative slow ability of flight outside of vehicle form. I love this Energon expenditure rule here. If you are flying as a robot, not as a jet or whatever, but as a robot, it's going to use up your Energon pretty quick. So it's 1 Energon per round, that's 12 Energon per minute, and that gives you about 8 minutes of flight before you reduce to 0 Energon, which is about right. I would use this for both Autobots and Decepticons. I would use this Energon usage thing for both, and I would make it so that I would change this so it's not a special ability. This is what I do in my games, but it is considered 1 point of tools. So you can get rid of 1 point of tools and integrate Robot Flight into your person. That is a choice for both Autobots and Decepticons, and it is not Energon free. It costs 1 Energon per round to use. You are dealing with wind shear. I can't tell you how big of an issue wind is for flight. I'm not a pilot, but I've done the research. I'd love to be a pilot, but it's so very expensive in real life. It really is. I don't have that kind of money. Ironically, I could make a lot of money as a pilot or decent money as a pilot, if I had became a pilot, but my eyes are awful, and I went a different way in my life. Maybe I'll go to flight school. Who knows? Anyway, wind can knock you over. Even the largest transformer, it could knock over. It just a small gust of wind, a large gust of wind, you're expending a lot of energy to stay in the air. And because of wind, and all the corrections you're making. You're not an aerodynamic shape when you're a robot. When you're a jet, you're an aerodynamic shape. There's a reason why the Seekers macro change into a jet fighter, because being that big helps with aerodynamics, believe it or not. Moving that fast helps with aerodynamics, believe it or not. Smaller things have a harder time with wind than bigger, faster things. The bigger and faster you go and the more aerodynamic your build is, the better you deal with wind shear, in the same way that a larger boat deals with waves better than a smaller boat. Robot flight should be expensive. You know the way I do it now. You know the way he does it. The THK does it. We did disagree on this. I didn't really press the issue because, frankly, I knew he was building this off G1, and in G1 this rule stands. Outside of G1, my description fits a lot better. But your mileage may vary. Choose whatever works for your group. Remember, as long as you're having fun, you're doing it right. Super speed. You got to be able to transform into a vehicle that can hit supersonic speeds. Super speed affects robot form only. For super speed run, robot movement speed is doubled per movement action. Robot speed is tripled for super speed 2. Think of Blur from Transformers the movie. Yeah, you move really, really fast, but you have to make a lot of stamina rolls. You have to make a stamina roll every 3 rounds. So make sure your strength or your stamina skill is high enough to hit that. Yeah. They also suffer a negative 3D to sneak rolls on solid grounds. Getting them to walk carefully and slowly is almost impossible. But on the other hand, wow, can they move, and it doesn't cost any energon. Super strength, one of my personal favorites. It gives you 1 class size larger in super strength. So if you're basically you add 2D if you're a class 1 to all of your damage. It's only damage, is not resisting damage and lifting. It's damage and lifting. So it's only for melee damage. It's not for your guns. It doesn't impact your guns. But for lifting and for melee damage, you add a class size to your super strength. So if you're class 1, you roll as if you're class 2, so you add 2D. If you're class 2, you roll as if you're class 3, so you add 2D. If you're class 3, you roll as if you're class 4, so you add 6D. Class 3 with super strength is ridiculously powerful. Personally, I would probably just knock this back to a straight plus 2D in strength, but he didn't. This is the way THK runs it. I've run it this way a few times in my games. It's a lot of fun. Melee combat comes up a lot less often than you might think. It's one of the reasons why Grunt, though completely broken, is not a game-breaking character, because melee damage comes up less often than you think. Throwing you would add your damage to throwing. But anyway, and climb jump. All your strength skills would get this 2D bonus from super strength. Yeah. Sonic Boom! 1 pick. This is basically the same thing as Quake. You knock stuff over when you jump to Sonic Boom, and you get there that fast. It costs 10 energon per use, and everyone on the ground within 300 meters who feels the blast of the Sonic Boom need to roll against your strength roll. Need to roll their stand-up versus your strength roll. Their dex. They need to roll their dex against your strength roll. It's exactly like Quake, but different. You do it in the air, and you're trying not to destroy any buildings unless you're a Decepticon. Sniper is a 1 pick. Humans can take this too. I'm sorry, there's not much more to say about Sonic Boom. Sorry, just like there's not a lot more to say about Super Strength. It's exactly what's on the tin. Okay, sniper. You need to have a ranged weapon of skill 5D. You need to have a sneak of 5D. And I'm just going to read this out. It explains itself. One must be completely unknown to the enemy in order to attempt this power. But if at the time that your character is pulling the trigger and is less than 500 meters away, and you're completely unknown to the enemy, this special ability allows you to add 3D damage to your attack roll. You're not known to the enemy, and you're under 500 meters away, you can add 3D damage to your attack roll. It's very situational, and it's very powerful. You combo this with Charger, so you can increase the amount of energon you spend for an integrated weapon. And guess what? You're now adding an additional 5D with 2 picks of Charger, and 1 pick of Sniper. So if you're doing 4D damage with your weapon, or even 5D damage, you're adding 5D to that. Now you're rolling 9D to 10D damage when you connect against somebody who's rolling 3 to 4D to resist. Yeah, you're going to be taking people out in one hit. Maybe not entirely. Maybe you're just incapacitating them, depending on how your dice roll. But yeah, that's really good power. Symbiote, one pick. You must be 2 sizes smaller than the Symbiote Guardian or Master, so really this is built for Class 1s and Class 3s. A symbiote robot has a relationship with his or her master in the sense that they are related objects in vehicle or object form and can remain within the Guardian until released by the Guardian. Generally, as the player, you're going to be picking the Guardian power. Also, once they come back, you can share information directly while they're connected to you in their form, just like Soundwave and Blaster do. Yeah. It is actually possible to be both a symbiote combo and a combiner. I asked him about this, and he's like, "Yeah, that would work. I never thought of that." So you take Guardian 4, which is a ridiculous amount of. You don't have enough character. Actually, you would just barely have enough points to do this at character creation. So you take Guardian 4. Because you need 4 of them. So, where is this? As the last special ability explained, the Guardian houses smaller robots in robot form and in transform mode. Soundwave's example is a tape deck housing tapes. Symbiote Guardian allows the Guardian to contain 2 smaller symbiotes per application of the power. So you only need to take Guardian 2. So at Guardian 1, you can have 2 symbiotes. At Guardian 2, you can have 4 symbiotes. At Guardian 3, you can have 6 symbiotes. And at Guardian 4, you can have 8 symbiotes. So if you take Guardian 2, Combiner, Body. So that's 3 special abilities for Class 3. That's not undoable. That's perfectly feasible. Then your symbiotes all take Combiner Limb 1. And so you've got 2 arms and 2 legs, and the symbiotes stay with you. You can actually be both a symbiote and a combiner. And that is pretty awesome and game-breaking. Yeah, there you go. I'm not rereading this, but yes, you can have an NPC play the symbiotes for you. Which I like and hate as a GM. Don't spring this on me. Give me time to prepare. Because I had a player who decided they were going to be a symbiote guardian right before the session. They changed this on me, and I'm like, I just said fine. It's in the rules. I know the rules. I know how this plays. It'll be great. Turned out I had to create the symbiotes for them on the go. Yeah, that was rough. I was not ready for that. Stuck with me how much I was not ready for that. Target Master, just like Headmaster, but you turn into a gun. If that gun is mounted on, say, your shoulder, like many other Transformers do, then during combat, the Target Master can aim and shoot while on your shoulder. Something to think about. Pretty cool power. Same rules as Headmaster, we already covered this. Tempered Weapons 1. I don't know why the energon expenditure is so much higher for this than it is for Charger, but it is. It's a lot higher. Basically, if you have a physical state weapon, like your sword, you got a sword hand, or a non-energy melee weapon, so you don't even need to have it be a physical state weapon. But it's a melee weapon capable of conducting an electrical charge. If you have tempered weapons, then you can charge that weapon with Energon, and it'll do extra damage. So, he goes through how it works here. You can pause the screen and read through it if you'd like to. Teleport 2 picks. This is one of my favorites. I almost never take it, but it's one of my favorites. It allows you to teleport up to 500 meters away. You have to see where you're looking. If you take 2 picks, you don't have to see where you're looking, but if you accidentally teleport into something because you weren't looking, then you're probably going to die. You're going to definitely lose a limb, but the limb is just gone, or you're dead. Yeah. With Teleport 2, it doubles to a full kilometer instead of just 500 meters. Powerful ability, very expensive. It's 25 energon per jump, so you're not going to be teleporting 6 times because you don't have that much energon. But 2 teleports per combat, that's not too hard to believe. If you have enough powers to combine this with Energon Vampire and Electrical Hijack, you can teleport behind the guy you see, your enemy. You can teleport right behind him and grab him. That counts as a surprise attack. Underwater combat. Yeah, this is kind of like aerial combat. He had vehicular combat at one point. I don't know if it's not in here. So, again, just like aerial combat, you can add half of your dodge dice to be applied to existing vehicular evasion skill, or half of your ranged weapons dice can be applied to your vehicular weapons skill. Combine that with pilot. This is really just for submarines. And away you go. Virus. But if you turn into a submarine, boy, don't you wish you had it. Virus 1. This is a lot like Electronic Hijack or Energon Vampire. Different set of requirements, though, except for that 4D perception, and this makes it a 5D brawling. Wow. This power is similar to the Electronic Hijack ability, but it's used for purposes other than controlling the opponent. Upon a successful sneak attack or brawling counter, one can use a special shock attack that attacks electrical systems. A shock attack with a specific function, primarily to get the target dizzy, free up, and possibly turn them into an unwilling spy. So, it costs energon to run this. It costs a lot of energon, and you get to choose as the player, and you get a plus 5 bonus, not 5D, just plus 5 to your total score, to the uploaders granted during a successful sneak attack, and that adds to your perception. So you roll your perception against their perception. Yeah, rolls difficulty of the target's perception versus the uploader's perception roll. Anyway, it hits. When it hits, you get to choose how much energon you want to use and how you want it to use it, what the damage you want to do. It's listed here. 40 points will completely lock up your opponent. It doesn't say for how long. I'm assuming for, I don't know, considering how much energon you're using, I'd say 2d6 rounds or 1d6 minutes. 1d6 minutes probably, which is a lot of time in combat. Warrior 1, the last special ability, and I'm going to end with this and do a different section on disadvantages or disabilities. What did he call them? Disabilities. I think we're going to end after this, because how long have we been going? Over an hour. Yeah. Warrior 1. This is exactly like Engineer 1. It halves the tool cost of your warrior packages. And we'll go over tool packages in Chapter 3. That's it. That's all of them. It's a lot of special abilities. He has more special abilities like Power Master and Kit Basher and a lot of other powers in the Hero's Guide. I might do a series of videos on the Hero's Guide, but I might not. Yeah. Fast Draw, I think, is in there. Anyway. Yeah. Enjoy. I hope you liked it. I hope you're thinking about playing this game. It's a lot of fun. I'm so glad I found the PDF to download for free online. Link in the description down below. Yeah, you You guys have a great day. Have a wonderful night. Keep on trucking, you Blam Blam truckers. And Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.